listening. You laugh, but this gets people to stop being on their phone and playing video games and pay attention. I gave this talk 2 months ago, September, yeah, 2.5 months ago at Oracle Code 1 with my friend Chandra. I left the presentation exactly intact so you get the same experience as the people who paid a lot of money to hear it at Oracle Code 1. So you can just ignore the references to Chandra because he's in New Jersey and not here right now. Chandra and I are both Java champions. We've been doing Java development for a long time. I'm an author and I'm a CodeRanch moderator, and I think it's awesome that someone in the room recognized me from that last one. If you were at Code 1, we had talks that we recommended. As I said, a whole experience here. So we're talking today about the Java release model, about what's changed, what you need to expect, and what you need to think about when picking a JDK vendor. Does anyone here work for a JDK vendor? Oh, good. People who work for JDK vendors have strong opinions. I do not work for a JDK vendor. Chandra and I both work for financial institutions in New York City. That's actually part of the reason that we gave this talk. We wanted to have a version of it that clearly doesn't have any bias. We're doing this because we think that this is a topic that needs to be understood well. And it's a topic that Oracle hasn't communicated about in the clearest fashion. And it's an opportunity to make things clearer. We're going to cover a number of things today. We're going to cover the history of why we're doing this, why we needed to have these changes in the first place. Then we're going to talk about the release cycles, what support means, why you care about it or don't, what Java distributions exist from the major ones, and then our favorite new features in recent versions of Java. For those of you who are on Java 8, this is the future. It's good to know what's coming and what you should be excited about. Over time, this is Duke. Hi, Duke. We had releases to Java. Oracle acquired Sun in 2010, and after that, released Java every 2 years. There's quotes here because if you can do math, this was not every 2 years, this is every 3 years. But there's a bunch of marketing material that claims it happened every 2 years. Okay, so we had releases every 3 years. 2 years, 3 years, same thing, right? Well, the problem was that it didn't happen on a regular basis. If you asked in 2014 when Java 9 was coming out, nobody would have said 2017. It would have been like, I don't know when it comes out. That made it really hard to plan. We're going to take a look at Duke's career in school to get a feel for why this was a problem. Up until 2014, Duke went to Java elementary school. Let's see what subjects Duke took in school. His first class was developer community. Duke did a good job in developer community. There were meetups, there were conferences, there were forums like CodeRanch, there were mailing lists. There was a lot in the space of Java community. And Duke did a really good job embracing that. Good job, Duke. Features. Features class is tricky because however well you do in features class, there's always more features that can be done. So Duke gets a B in features, but it's really hard to get an A. When a language is done, it's dead. Duke's next subject was frequency of release. Now Duke's a pretty good student, so he got an F in frequency of release. Yeah, 3 years isn't very frequent. All right, fine. But it might not have been frequent, but it was predictable, right? Predictably slow, maybe. But no worries, Duke went on. He then went to JDK High School. He went for 4 years, like many of us here in the United States did for high school, from 2014 to 2018. So he got another chance to take some more new subjects. His first class was scalability and performance. Duke did a pretty good job in scalability and performance. Just like features class, of course, you can never be done. But he's doing acceptably here. This is good. The JDK is not being slowed down by scalability problems. His next class was polyglot programming. Duke had to learn a lot of new languages in high school. He had to learn Groovy and Kotlin and Scala. He had to learn how to support all these other languages on the JDK, not just Java. And he did a great job at that. If you look online, there's tons and tons and tons of languages. Someone even made a port of COBOL that runs in the JDK. Not really sure why, but it solves some sort of problem. Then he had to retake some of his classes because he didn't quite master them in elementary school. So we've got frequency of release, and Duke's not doing any better here. So we've got a problem. And Duke's really needing to address these things because his weak subjects are the things that are dragging down the Java language. In 2019, Duke went to college. But this time he has a new release model, where every 6 months there's going to be a release, and every 3 years there's going to be a long-term support release, and he's going to stick to it. Let's see how Duke did. Developer community, A+. The developer community is stronger than ever. Agile. Got an A in Agile. We know what's happening. We know when it's happening, when it's going to occur, and it's documented. We've got smaller features. This is something we all value in Agile, that we're not going to wait until some giant feature like Jigsaw is done. We're going to do it in little small pieces that are releasable. This is great. It's embracing new technology and new development cycles. Frequency of release. We're giving him an A here. Even though the LTS release is still every 3 years, a smaller release is every 6 months. That's pretty frequent. The people who care about frequency of release are going to upgrade every 6 months. They're happy that it's frequent. The people who are perfectly happy with the 3-year release cycle are going to only upgrade the LTS releases, but they weren't the ones who had a problem with the 3-year frequency of release in the first place, so it's not an actual problem for them. It's a statement of fact. I work for a bank. We don't want to be upgrading something every 6 months. 3 years is a wonderful cadence for release. And predictability of release. Duke gets an A on predictability of release. It's every 6 months like clockwork. There is a schedule. You can look now and see when the next version of Java is coming out. You can put it on your calendar, and you are not going to be surprised what happens that day. This is progress. It's also some nice transparency that we've needed in the Java ecosystem for a while, because you want to plan things. Whether you're upgrading every 6 months or every 3 years, you probably have managers, and they like to make plans and budgets and ask when things are going to happen. And when they ask, are you going to upgrade Java in 2020? Well, I don't know. Depends if there's a release, and then it depends on what's in the release, and then it depends on how much time we have. That turns into no. No, you're not going to. I will ask you in 2020 if you want to do it in 2021. If you can say, okay, well, I know the next long-term support release comes out on this date, and we want to migrate 6 months after that, you can get it planned, and then it actually happens. So we've got our release cycles. Java 11 came out in September of 2018. That's in the past. When we did the little show of hands, we saw most of us are on Java 8. Some people did research and learned that this is actually normal, that people generally start migrating to a major release about a year after it came out. That gives people that aren't you time to kick the tires, see what problems there are. It gives vendors like WebSphere time to get on board and have support for it. Makes everybody feel warm and cozy, which means over the next 6 months we should see Java 11 adoption skyrocket. Every 6 months we have our next release, and then in September 2021, Java 17, the next LTS release comes out. If you only remember one thing from this talk, that is the most important thing to remember. That Java 8, Java 11, and Java 17 are LTS releases. That is important because you don't want to upgrade to a release that's a non-LTS release by mistake. If you're doing it, you want it to be a planned strategy. Oh, right. We've been talking here about OpenJDK, not Oracle JDK. OpenJDK is free, and we'll get to a little more about the differences later in the presentation. While OpenJDK is free, it's not a free-for-all. OpenJDK is supported by numerous parties. There are a number of companies that contribute, and there's also one company that stewards it. That company can change over time. Oracle was stewarding Java 11 for the first 6 months of its release. They plan to do the same for Java 17. Red Hat is stewarding Java 11 from 6 months on. They have not announced yet how long that is going to be. It's not going to be forever, but it's clearly going to be for more than 3 years. Another company may do the same thing for Java 17, or maybe it'll be Red Hat, or maybe it'll be IBM, I guess. But who knows? We don't need to know this. It comes out in 2021. But the point is, it's not just free and being left to the wind. A major company is going to ensure that it's stable and safe to use. The Oracle JDK is the commercial version of OpenJDK. The Oracle JDK is sometimes free to use. We'll get to the definition of sometimes a little while later. But the gist of it is if you're using it in production, you need to pay Oracle money. They are providing a reference implementation for OpenJDK every 6 months. When that 6-month period ends, they're handing it off for the LTS. For the non-LTS, it's essentially done and people migrate to the next non-LTS. For paid customers, their standard implementation, they're providing Java 11 for at least X years. They're providing the 6 months releases for 6 months, imagine that, and all is well with the world. They are providing LTS releases every 3 years. We've covered that, but I like repetition for things that are really important. So now it is time for a quiz and your opportunity to win free chocolate. If you would like to have the opportunity to win free chocolate, when I ask the question, raise your hand. If you shout out the answer, you don't get free chocolate. And I have to eat all the chocolate. Okay, so our first question is, once Java 13 comes out, what does Oracle issue patches for? Gil,
Java 11,
can you be more specific?
LTS.
Yes, Oracle 11. I almost threw it far enough. Okay, are there any others?
Java 13.
Yes, there's no way I'm throwing chocolate that far.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Good catch.
Okay, so that was 2 of the 3. And the third one is essentially Java 13 again, so you get double credit, but you only get 1 chocolate.
It's a Twix, it's 2 bars.
There you go. There's actually an OpenJDK and an Oracle JDK version of 13, but that's a subtle detail. The key point is when you're in the 6-month cycle, they're issuing free patches for that 6-month cycle and the previous LTS. And if you pay more money, the previous LTS. Good to know. Second question. How long will Oracle issue Java 13 patches? This one should be easy.
6 months?
Yep. I think we've established that I can't throw that far.
Oh.
So I came a little closer. Right? Third quiz question. This one involves either math or memory. What is the next LTS version after Java 11? Anybody who didn't answer yet?
17.
Yep. Okay. And our last question in this batch, there's another batch coming later. How long can Java 8 be used in production for free? This one's tricky because I didn't cover it. Let's see if anyone actually knows.
Indefinitely?
Yes, forever. The new licensing rules started with Java 11 or 9, depending on how you count. Java 8 did not have rules against using it in production when it came out, so those rules that you can use it in production for free apply forever. However, there are no free patches for Java 8, so if you were using Java 8 for free in production, you have a security problem on your hands. And that security problem will get worse over time because there'll be more and more time for people to exploit those vulnerabilities. So please don't use Oracle's Java 8 in production forever, even though their lawyers won't come after you with pitchforks. Is that good? I saw you cringing when I said you can use it forever. But there is a difference between legal and security, and it's important to know the ramifications of both. If you are a paid Oracle customer, there are JDK 8 patches still, so it's safe to use, which is what my company is doing. Okay, so some of you have chocolate now, keep you awake. So support. Java is still free. This is one of the problems that when the new release model came out, there was a lot of confusion around because Oracle's communication sounds like it was written by lawyers. Well, Oracle is free except if you... All right, so Oracle JDK, the one you download from oracle.com, is free for personal use and some other uses. You can read the legal fine print to find out if your specific edge case is one of those uses. There are things like education and things that sound like personal use. If you're running a company, your thing in production is clearly not personal use. That should go without saying. OpenJDK, which is the reference implementation, is legit free. That's the one that Oracle provides patches for 6 months, and the goodwill of other companies provides patches for longer. But so far, the other companies have embraced the Java community, and this isn't looking like it's a problem. In fact, the other company's support of Java has gotten even stronger since the statement was made, because now we have Microsoft investing heavily in the Java space and IBM acquiring Red Hat, so I see no reason why we would have any problems with vendors contributing to OpenJDK support. Then there are a number of other vendors, which we'll see later in the presentation, that provide free Java as well. So it's not a problem to use Java for free. That's the short answer of whether Java is free. The long answer takes 20 to 30 minutes to read. It's a really good read and well worth reading. Google Java is still free. When you Google Java is still free, look at the top of the URL and see if it says there's a link to a later document, and if there is, click it. Then you're on the latest document and you can read the Java is still free. But it is a complicated thing, and this is part of why it was so confusing when Oracle announced it, because there's a bunch of edge cases. The thing is, most of us work for companies, and most of us care about the common case, which is don't use Oracle JDK 8 in production for free, other ones are fine. So I've used the word support a number of times, but I've used it as if it was a well-defined term. And this is problem number 2 with Oracle's communication about whether Java is free. Well, it depends on what you need by support. So there's security patches and updates, bug fixes, and then there's the ability to ask a question. When you pay for commercial support from Oracle, you get both of these things. Most companies, however, only care about the first thing, patches and updates. You care that your thing isn't vulnerable, and you care that your thing isn't buggy. Most people do not care about their ability to ask Oracle a question. And by decoupling them, that lets you choose a JDK or a paid commercial support that meets your actual needs. My company does pay to ask Oracle a question, but we're a bank, downtime is extremely expensive. Depending on your business, you may or may not have that level of criticality. We have not used that option many times, but it has been a non-zero number of times, and when you have to use it, it's very valuable. Okay, next up is LTS versus MTS. LTS stands for long-term support. MTS stands for medium-term support. Azul, which is one of the Java vendors, added support for an intermediate version of Java. They said, okay, well, we have some customers where 6 months is too often and 3 years isn't often enough. What do? They released for those customers, they said, okay, well, every 6 months is too often, so we're not going to deal with every 6 months. But what we are going to do is for every year, we're going to say that that's something that we're going to provide support for some period of time. If it's Java 11 or 17, it's a long-term support release, so we're going to provide support for a long time. That sounds reasonable. And for the 1-year releases, we're going to provide support for a medium length of time, less time. And that's okay, because you're not going to use it as long. If you're saying you care enough about Java, your Java currency to upgrade every year, you're not going to be on Java 13 for 8 years, right? That directly conflicts with your stated goal if you want to upgrade more frequently. So they've provided a choice for people who want something in between. But going back to Duke and his little imaginary report card, they still have the frequency of release every year, and they still have the predictability of release every year. So they're able to make intelligent decisions based on what they need. And we can see here that the support varies based on what it is. If it's long-term support, it is a really long time, 8 years or more. It's often more. What I notice Oracle does is they commit to 8 years, and then when 8 years gets closer, they add more time to it. Java 6 end of life last year, for what it's worth. And an MTS is supported for 18 months after the latest LTS. Now, if you're paying attention, that means that 13 and 15 are supported for different lengths of time. 13 is supported longer than 15. Both of those, their support ends on the same day. The idea being you really should upgrade to the LTS and not stay on a medium-term support release longer after the LTS has come out. That seems reasonable enough. All right, so Oracle support. What does this mean? If you are a non-commercial entity, think personal use, you have access to the Oracle Tech Network. That's online, forum-based, free support. You get what you pay for, don't have high expectations. If you are an enterprise and care about paid support, there's 3 levels of support. Which level of support you pay for determines how fast you get a response, and more importantly, how long you get security patches for your chosen version of Java. So when I said that Java 6 support ended last year, that was extended support. Premier support had ended earlier. Sustaining support essentially means you can get patches forever, but it's really, really, really expensive, so most people don't choose to do that. Okay. You cannot call Oracle if you are on OTN support. You're getting free support as people have it. You may or may not get security patches with the free release. If something really bad happens, Oracle really usually does provide patches because they don't want to be in the news as their thing is terrible. but the length of support for paid support varies based on how much money you pay Oracle. Cloud. Who's using the cloud right now? Okay. And quick survey because I'm curious. AWS? Azure? Google? IBM? Anybody who I've forgotten? Okay, that's actually pretty similar to when we do the survey in New York, so it's good to see that that's the same across the country. What's interesting is that all three of the major cloud vendors have ties to a JDK. So, AWS is using Corretto, which is the JDK that they built. Azure is using Azul, although that may change as Microsoft invests more heavily in Java themselves. And Oracle, unsurprisingly, is using Oracle Java. I didn't mention Oracle Cloud when I did the survey, but no one said yes for other, so yeah. But it's good to know that they do have decisions that they've made about what JDK they use by default. Okay, quiz time. Duke feels lucky because 13 is a lucky number. Can a developer expect support for an OTN download? Think carefully about this one. I need to check. I'm not checking the answer, obviously, because the answer is easy. I'm checking where my other quizzes are. Okay, so got this question and one more. So you got 2 more opportunities to win chocolate. Who wants chocolate? Who knows the answer to this? Come on, guys. This one's easy. Can a developer expect support for an OTN download?
It's binary.
Yeah, you can guess.
Yep.
No is correct. Yeah. Right. You may get support, but you may not. Which is hardly the difference of expecting support. This is something that depends on what your company wants. Is it going to be important to them that they get support on demand? If so, that costs money. Okay, Java distributions. There are a good number of Java distributions. This is not a finite list of every Java distribution on earth. These are the ones that you're likely to encounter. These slides are all on speaker deck. I am not expecting anybody to memorize this. I know there's a lot of information on here, but it is useful as a reference to know that it exists. So we've got the type of JDK that the type of JDK it is, what versions they support, which is color-coded. The ones that are LTSs are ones that are not orange. We've got who supports it. When you use a JDK, you care about where your support is coming from if you care about support. How long it's supported for, if it passed a compatibility test, and how long it's updated. This one is interesting because Java 8 support lasts longer than Java 11 support at the moment. That may change. As I mentioned, some of the vendors add length of time to the support as time goes on, or it might not, but 2022 is in the future, so we shall see. Amazon is new. They do support Java 8 though, and they have provided information as of how long they think they're going to support it. Azul has 2 JDKs. We talked a lot about them and their MTS release earlier. BuildSoft is interesting. It's used by a lot of companies, but a lot of them aren't public facing, so you probably haven't heard of it, but they are one of the largest contributors to the JDK, which is surprising for a company that we may not have heard of, so it was definitely worth noting here. IBM has a JDK. They have not said yet how long that they're supporting Java 11 as of 2.5 months ago, but I'm sure they'll get around to that eventually. OpenJDK we talked about. Oh, sorry. SAP is another one that you probably aren't using, but they contribute heavily to the JDK, and it's embedded in things, so you might be using it and not know. Oracle we've talked about extensively. So how do you decide when you're going to upgrade your JDK? Let's suppose you're on Java 8 right now, because most of us are. You have 3 choices. You can stay on Java 8 forever. Please don't. You hit the end of life and then you can't get anything updated. Also, your development skills will go stale, and when you hire people, they will be annoyed that they can't use any later APIs ever. So that's not really a viable plan, but it exists. You can say you're going to be on the current release, so every 6 months you're going to upgrade your JDK, you get the latest features, but you have to upgrade every 6 months. Or you can say you're going to use the latest LTS, which is now Java 11. You get many but not all of the new features, but the migration cost is lower because you're not doing it as often. Any of these strategies is a viable strategy. Talking about it with your team and your management, knowing your level of risk and your financial situation is important to making a decision. Hey, there's another quiz somewhere.
Go back to that one-sided question on the distros, the pros and cons.
This one?
Yes.
Yes.
Third-party library support or adoption. How would you, where would that, wouldn't that be a con, for example, if some of the libraries aren't up on 11 yet? Or,
I wouldn't call that a con because Java's really good about backward compatibility. If I'm on Java 13, nothing stops me from using a library that's on Java 11. I find many OSS libraries are good about upgrading frequently, but I don't view that as a con. And I think a major reason to upgrade every 6 months is to not pay money for it, and not so much that you need the latest and greatest feature anyway. But there haven't been as many syntax changes and they're not as fast, so I don't think that's such a big deal. I think it would have been if this happened with Java 8.
The issue there would be, if it's on Java 8, they're not going to have to fix the patches, right? So sometimes there's always a security problem with using a library, third-party library.
Yeah, but it's not the version that the library was compiled with, it's the version you're running it on. Right, so if your open source library is calling an API that had a security issue in 8 and you're running it on JDK 11, you're good. So that seems fine. If there's a security defect in the library itself, like Spring, you would need to upgrade Spring, but that's not tied to the version of Java either. I think you're okay.
What about the Java 8 to 9 plus, like the reflection, the permission issues?
Right, so that is definitely an issue, but it's a separate issue from the one that he was talking about. Modules are interesting. The good thing is that they are essentially optional. You can choose that you're going to run on Java 9 or 11 without modules, and you probably should for your first attempt at it, so you're not changing two things at the same time. When you decide to modularize, you care very much about having up-to-date Java libraries and whether they support Java 9 plus. But that, again, that's not tied to what version of the JDK you're running on. It is tied to how you design your application. It's also important to note with modules, and Gail didn't ask about this, but since you brought up modules, some of the features you get with modules only apply if people are using modules for their application. For example, you can have private packages with modules, so only people who you have designated are allowed to use those packages or nobody. But if they're on the class path, those things are no longer private, so you can't rely on protecting your code by the fact that you're assuming everyone will use modules, because spoiler, they're not. Also, I checked, I had miscounted the quiz, so there's no more opportunities for
no more
chocolate.
chocolate.
Sorry. Sad. To tie things up, we've got our favorite new features. These are Chandra and my favorite new features. So Chandra is invisible, but we've got his opinions in here. What we did is we went through Java 11, 12, and 13. We each picked one favorite feature in each of those versions of the language. These are things that we want people to be aware are coming, and also that we think reflect Java's evolution nicely. So for Java 11, my favorite feature is single file source code execution. That means if you have a program that only has one file in it, you don't have to compile it first. You can compile and run in one statement, it compiles in memory and just runs it. As a professional programmer, this feature is effectively useless. I suspect you all will be far less excited about it than I am. As someone who mentors high school students and every year deals with a good number of people who are learning Java, this is awesome because you don't have to explain to people when they write their first program, you type Java C in the class name Java, then you type Java in the class name, but don't type class because then it won't work. And we waste so much time on that, and people are like, in Python, I just have to run the program, right? So it makes for an easier intro to Java, which I think is really nice. I have used it on occasion when I'm trying to test whether a syntax feature works the way I think it does. I'll just write a quick program and not compile it. So that's kind of cool. So we compile in memory and we just write Java, the name of the class, and the file name, not .class because it's a file. This particular code is Unicode that invites you to have a beer or a soda because you can do that in Unicode. Chandra's favorite feature in Java 11 is garbage collection. There's an experimental Z garbage collector which changes the memory model for how garbage collection is done to start making it more efficient. It's experimental, so you have to set a flag to opt in, which says, I really know what I'm doing, I won't complain when this blows up for me. And then there's the no-op epsilon garbage collector, which does what it sounds like. It doesn't collect any garbage. Now, I know what you're thinking, why would I want a garbage collector that doesn't do the one thing a garbage collector is supposed to do, right? There are a couple use cases for it. One of them is when you're trying to run a performance test. One of the hard parts of running a performance test is that the garbage collector keeps collecting the garbage, and it's hard to find out what happens when your application runs out of memory. If you tell the garbage collector not to do anything, you run out of memory really fast. And the second one is if you're doing something that's really short. I have this command line program, it's gonna run for 6 milliseconds. I don't need any garbage collection to happen. It's good to have that as an option. For Java 12, we have compact number formatting. We actually both like this feature. We both work for financial institutions, which means we both deal with large numbers on a regular basis. When you deal with large numbers on a regular basis, you have to either write your own or find a third-party API to format things in a reasonable fashion. In Java 12, it can be done natively. So when I run this, I get to see numbers that look like I would present them to a fellow human being. 1,000, K. I don't have the actual number of 20012. It's like I don't look at it that way. And it's really nice to be able to do that in the JDK itself. We also like switch expressions. Switch expressions are what's called a preview feature. Just like an experimental feature, in order to use a preview feature, you need to opt in. You need to say, I know what I'm doing this on purpose. With a preview feature, you're not so much worrying that it's going to blow up your code. Switch expressions do work. What you are agreeing to is I am willing to sacrifice backward compatibility. Oracle has not promised that a preview feature syntax will be the final syntax. It will probably be the final syntax. That's the goal. But they need to see real world use to make sure it's right. Because it's really, really, really hard to change Java syntax. By saying that this is a regular feature, we're now committing to this essentially forever. By saying it's a preview feature, we're getting that experience to make sure it's really right before it comes into the real world. I like that these preview features are part of non-LTS releases, because I'm not upgrading Java again until Java 17, and I fully believe this feature will be in Java 17. Java 13 continues on with the exact same feature. You remember when I was talking about Agile before? Delivering things in small pieces. And there was, in fact, a small syntax change to the API. Still not final, but we're making progress and we're learning what people need in order to accomplish things. And then my last favorite feature in Java 13 is raw string literals. On a build tools team, I write a lot of tests. And my tests involve a lot of strings and a lot of XML and a lot of multi-line strings, and I hate dealing with those because I either have to escape the pants off of them or put them in a file. Putting them in a file works, but now I have to look at 2 files to see what my test does. Really, really, really excited to see string literals. They are also a preview feature. Syntax might change. It won't change drastically, but it could change. But it's the idea that I can use triple quotes or some other syntax feature and just represent my string as is. That's really nice. Again, I'm okay with it being a preview feature because I'm sure by Java 17 it will be a real feature. That will make me very happy. Got some notes here about notable JVMs. We've been talking about the JDK a lot. The JVM is what you run on. There are a lot of JVMs out there. For the most part, we don't care which one we use. If you're doing something performance heavy, you care greatly. So this is not the point of the talk, but we did want to call out that there are some different JVMs out there. Zulu and Zing are dealing with performance differently. Growl is great because you can run languages other than Java really well and integrate with them. And with that, are there any other questions or people who want candy?
Yeah, some questions here. So my company runs actually on AIX, all
Okay.
that stuff. So we've been bound to IBM JVMs.
Mm-hmm.
Which JVMs do actually support AIX as a platform?
I would assume IBM, but I don't know. Does anybody else know?
Well, we ran into the same thing that you just mentioned about Java 11. Nobody knows. We actually opened a ticket with them, I believe. The information we got is, yeah, we're not going to release a Java 11. We just pushed everything to that adopt OpenJDK. And they've done this, I believe, a year ago
Interesting.
already. So we're still in the fact-finding stage there. We're still talking. or my boss is.
You're locked into the OS, is what you're saying, AIX?
Yes,
Okay,
we're not just a Java shop.
Yeah.
Our software is like 40 years old.
yeah.
And
I'm sure you've done this already, but I would say go to adopt OpenJDK and search for AIX, but I'm sure you've done that already and have summarized the answers here.
yeah, so yeah, it lists their hotspot and J9, and that's
Yeah.
it.
So the one thing I can tell you, I worked at IBM, I guess 9 years ago, but they were huge about making sure that they had a JDK available on all the platforms. Like this actually is a detriment. It took us forever to get to Java 6 because we had to wait, actually it took forever to get to Java 5 because they needed to get the mainframe JDK ready. They weren't willing to go until they did that. They will support it. The only way that company's ever going to make money anymore, aside from Red Hat, is to keep supporting everybody who's tied into the system, and they will do everything they can to make you happy. And there's no way they're not going to maintain a JDK on AIX. Otherwise, y'all would have to leave.
Then again, how long has Java 11 been out already? And there's still
A little over a year.
This is that adoption where it takes a long time. For example, you know, we're still here at ResNet on 7 and 8, trying to get into microservice land, and that will be on 11, 12, 13, and beyond.
That said, WebSphere isn't so prompt to get to the latest version of Java either. They got to Java 11 4 or 5 months ago maybe, and that's sort of their flagship product in the Java space. So I wouldn't lose all hope, but I don't have any information that you don't have.
But don't hold your breath.
Yeah. It's a good way to turn blue.
Pun intended.
Big group.
And you already have a chocolate, I think, so I don't need to ask if you want one. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay.
All right, great. Thank you very much.